conservatives. I have to say it's particularly refreshing for me to be in a room like this, since I spent so much of my life debating the likes of Eleanor Clift, and yes, my brother-in-law, Alan Collins. But I am very proud to say that after our debates, Combs never leaves alive. By the way, you really don't want to see our Thanksgiving Day dinners because it's not a pretty sight. Although I must say I have mastered my aim of the mashed potatoes. Square, right here. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I have to say it is such an honor and a joy to share the stage with Governor Bush, who is a true hero of the Republic. Also Mayor Boomer, Chairman Cox, my old and dear friend Chairman Cox, Senator Skelos, of course, Archbishop Tolan, and the next governor of the state of New York, Rick Blasio. Conservative soul to be around like-minded folks, especially since as conservatives, we know we are always right. I am here tonight to put the party in the Republican Party Convention.
Yeah.
And I want to start with our good friend, George Washington. Back in 1785, he said this, and I want you to listen to these words very carefully. Washington said, democratical states must always feel before they can see. It is this that makes their government slow, but the people will be right at last. In 2008, the American people felt it was an emotional election, right? Think about it. There was excitement over the first viable African-American candidate for the presidency. There was weariness over his predecessor. There was anxiety over the economic situation, exhaustion over fighting two hot wars and a broader ideological war. There was hope for some kind of ambiguous change. Do you see what all of those words have in common? Excitement, weariness, anxiety, exhaustion, hope. They're all emotions. 2008 was an emotional election. And while it's true that every election has an emotional component to it, 2008 was even more so. And I want you to think about George Washington's statement. Democracies have to feel before they can see. Well, now we're starting to see. Rationality, intellectual judgment, and plain old common sense are kicking in, and not a moment too soon. And you know what? That's very bad news for the Democrats. Last year, if I was standing before you, I would have been giving a completely different kind of speech, right? Because those days were very dark for the Republican Party and for the conservative movement. After November 2008, we heard that the GOP was over, done, put a fork in it, that it was a relic of another time. And my favorite, that the Republican Party was now just a regional party that couldn't win outside of the South, and that the Democrats were now the permanent majority party. Well, what a difference a year makes. We've had Republicans win statewide offices now in New Jersey, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and yes, Massachusetts. I'm wrong, but New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts are all well above the Mason-Dixon line, aren't they? So much for the Republicans being a strictly Southern parochial party. Good glory, a Republican won in Massachusetts. And right across the river in the state of New Jersey, we elected a fearless, pro-life, tax-cutting, union-busting, fiscally responsible governor in Chris Christie. what happened. Democrats completely misread the 2008 election. They took it as a mandate to go hog wild with 40 years of pent-up liberalism. And their overreach was stunning, even by their own standards. Liberals in power, from the White House on down, straight through Albany, and we all know this, they sought nothing short of remaking this great country by shattering the very pillars of it. The economy, healthcare, energy, education, as Governor Bush so eloquently talked about, and most scarily, I think, national security. To take just one of those issues very quickly, first and foremost, the economy. The economic crisis is a moral crisis, and it's been one that the Democrats have exploited mercilessly. White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel, he infamously said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And so what did we get? We got bailouts. We are now closing in on $2 trillion of economic stimulus. Government takeovers of the auto industry, the banks, healthcare, student loans, and the attempted takeover of the energy sector. Ever more spending. Exploding trillion-dollar-plus deficits as far as the eye can see. Putting TNT under the national debt. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but a couple of months ago, under the cover of darkness, in the middle of the night, the Democrats in Congress raised the national debt ceiling to $14.3 trillion because $12.1 trillion just wasn't enough.